Chapter 22. Subterfuge.
So tell me, Shi-Wu, how goes that little research project of ours? Making good progress, I trust.
It looks more promising at the passing of every day, my queen. To my considerable surprise, I have come to firmly believe that the underlying theory is as practical as it is viable, and it is now only a matter of when, rather than if, this new nanotech can be used to augment the existing stasis technology. What's more, I believe we are on target for a not less than 9-fold increase, relative to the current maximum safe stasis duration.
9-fold, you say? Now that sounds like quite the boast. Perhaps you can make some allowances for your current audience and tell me what that actually translates to in real-world practical terms.
Shi-Wu emoted a small but very calculated sigh, provoking the queen just enough to generate a response, but without causing her to fly into an uncontrollable rage. These were the dangerous little games it liked to play now, having become increasingly adept at reading the queen's mood, and therefore knowing exactly how hard it could push without tipping her over the edge.
My queen, as I think you already know all too well, the current state-of-the-art in stasis technology recommends a maximum duration of 400 solar cycles, assuming of course you want the subject back alive. So, simply multiply 400 by a factor of 9, and you have your answer.
The Seabot paused just long enough to see glorious irritation blooming across Zitalia's face, before quickly then adding,
3,600 years, my queen.
Shi-Wu knew full well that this improvement was a complete game-changer, and would allow the Zicadian species a much deeper reach into the cosmic web. Combine that with faster AM drives that were edging their way ever closer to 40% light speed, and they were fast approaching a second epoch in the postmodern age of extrasolar interplanetary colonization. Of course, the Queen would likely not see it in quite such altruistic terms, but rather in the amount of time credits it would buy her nest while she continued her uncompromising search for Zicadia 2.0. But even so, Shi-Wu couldn't help but notice the obvious positive impact of this latest progress report, effectively pulling Zitalia back from the edge of yet another queenly tantrum.
A satisfactory prognosis, I suppose. But if it is a question of when rather than if, then how about an actual timeline for delivery? Is that really too much to ask?
Shi-Wu could not help but be mildly impressed with how well Zitalia suppressed her delight at its news, and instead just continued to push for more.
There are still a large number of unknowns, my queen, which would make offering a timeline little better than an educated guess. That said, I could always have a chat with the good doctor about preparing a preliminary roadmap. At least then, you might be in a better position to decide how all this fits into your long-term strategy. Of course, if you told me what that strategy actually was, I'd be more than happy to offer you some constructive criticism.
The Queen gave the Seabot a shit-eating grin.
Your apparent desire to become a trusted confidant is deeply touching, Shi-Wu. However, I am firmly of the opinion that you will maintain much better clarity of mind if you are not needlessly distracted by such volatile minutiae which more often than not is already out of date by the time it has left my mouth. So please try not to take it personally if I prefer to keep my own counsel.
As you wish, my queen, but with regards to a provisional roadmap, would you still like me to talk to the doctor?
Go ahead and do that, Shi-Wu. Unfortunately, though, you may also need to factor in your unavailability, as I have another very high-priority task for you. One that will require you to spend some time away from the nest, away from the whole of Zicadia in point of fact.
The Seabot emoted genuine surprise.
Really, my queen? And what could possibly be more important than the continued development of the new stasis technology?
Zitalia gave the Seabot a dirty look.
Well, how about my honor for starters? I know full well what the other queens are saying behind my back, and no doubt the rest of the nest does as well. So don't play the fool with me, Shi-Wu, or perhaps you think it's perfectly acceptable to have my reputation dragged through the proverbial mud.
I apologize unreservedly, my queen, but I'm not quite sure I understand what my queen is referring to. My queen.
The Seabot replied innocently.
Oh, very funny, Shi-Wu. But I'm sure you are all too well aware that Nestia Landria will very soon be leaving for Estella. and we both know for a fact that a Stella was stolen from me, and that Nest Italia is the rightful owner.
Strictly speaking, that star system belonged exclusively to Gimodian 110. But I do take your point, my queen. The circumstantial evidence does seem to strongly suggest that foul play might have facilitated the transfer of ownership to Nest Gelandria.
Simodian 110 belonged to me.
The Queen snapped angrily.
Therefore, Estella belonged to me by proxy. Or is there something wrong with that particular line of reasoning that you would care to enlighten me on?
Zitalia now wore a very dangerous look upon her face, a warning sign that Shiwu had come to recognize all too well.
You are, of course, absolutely correct, my queen. I make a point without a difference, so by any practical metric, the mistake is entirely mine.
The mistake most certainly is, and it is almost enough to make me seriously reconsider whether you are actually fit for the job. So what's it going to be, Shiwu? Are you willing to truly test your abilities, or would you prefer to stay here and continue to cower untested within the relative safety of the super nest?
I think it is very hard to say definitively,
The Z-Bot replied phlegmatically.
Given that I don't actually know the details of said assignment, there is simply no way I can offer a conclusive answer to your question. Be that as it may be, I will, as always, do my very best not to let you down, my queen.
Well, that's very reassuring to hear, as I am about to put more faith in your abilities than I have ever done before. This will be your moment of truth, Shiwu. Succeed in this endeavour, and I can see the two of us having a very long and fruitful relationship. Consider this your baptism of fire, the proving ground upon which you will demonstrate to me your true worth. Or not, as the case may be.
Something to really look forward to, then, my queen.
Shiwu replied somberly.
Well, you better hope that you don't screw this up, because if you do, I don't see much of a future for you at all, and that would be a very great shame, not just for you personally, but for everyone involved in your creation, and I do mean everyone, Shiwu.
The Queen waited expectantly for the Z-Bot to say something further, but it had apparently decided that discretion was indeed the better part of valor, and remained stoically silent.
So, to business then. As you no doubt are already well aware, the Series 4 She-Bots come in several flavours. Now then, one of those models is designed to fully integrate itself into the colony starships, where they act as the controlling intelligence that navigates the ship, maintains life support, and generally runs the whole shebang. And all while the colonists lie helplessly in stasis, I might hasten to add.
Zitalia paused briefly, as if allowing Ziwu adequate time to digest the information she had chosen to so melodramatically drip-feed it.
Put simply, Shiwu, you will be going undercover. I want you to emulate a Series 4 She-Bot and then integrate yourself into Gelandria's flagship.
But my queen,
Shiwu objected as strenuously as it dared risk.
unless I'm very much mistaken, that will require a roughly round-trip journey of 400 cycles. Slightly longer still, from Cicadia's reference frame. Isn't 400 years a rather significant length of time for me to be absent? I can well imagine Dr. Cicatica will not exactly be thrilled to lose my expertise, now that we are finally making real progress with our stasis research.
I agree entirely. 400 years would be completely unacceptable, which is precisely why you will wait for the flagship's crew to go into stasis, at which point you will use your prodigious number-crunching capabilities to crack Gelandria's secure network and find whatever evidence you can as to her complicity to the assassination of Zimodian 110 and the subsequent illegal acquisition of the Estella Red Dwarf star system. Much more importantly, though, you will uncover evidence that the assassination attempt on my life can be directly traced back to Queen Gelandria herself. Proof for any or all of these heinous crimes will allow me to legally reclaim Estella as my own when and if I so wish it, and with the full legal backing of the Super Nest, along with its not inconsiderable military resources. Are you finally starting to get the picture, Shiwu?
Unfortunately, all too well, my queen.
Shiwu replied laconically.
But, dare I ask, who exactly will pilot the colony's flagship once I have mercilessly abandoned it, which no doubt you are going to want me to do, the moment I have the required evidence safely in hand.
Trivial details, Shiwu. There will be a custom Series 4 G-bot smuggled on board with the same faux serial number as your good self. All you need to do is upload the relevant archival data into its memory banks before abandoning ship, such that if it were audited, it would, for all intents and purposes, appear to be exactly the same unit that started the journey. Trust me, Shiwu, it will be like you were never there.
What could possibly go wrong?
The Z-bot replied drolly.
But what if I can find no evidence of Zealandria's complicity in the alleged laundry list of crimes you have levelled against her, my queen?
Citalia waved a forelimb dismissively.
Then we will just have to find another way to extract the justice I so richly deserve, won't we? But let us speak frankly. With or without evidence, I think we both know who was guilty of these crimes. And likely many more besides. One way or another, Zealandria will pay for her treachery, and pay dearly. No, believe me, Siwu, Zealandria is about to get fucked harder than a bloodworm breeding replete while it's in heat.
The C-bot knew a lot better than to try and debate the plan, or otherwise antagonize Zitalia in her current state of mind.
As ingenious as always, my queen. So might I inquire as to when I will be departing for Eclades?
There is a pallet of Series 4 Z-bots scheduled for shipment within the next few days. Needless to say, you will be on it. As it turns out, these latest models use exactly the same outer shell as yourself, so they already appear completely identical to you by every observable metric. Oh, and by the way, Shiwu, there is one last very minor detail I almost forgot to mention.
Zitalia had now instantly gained the Z-bot's full attention, as it was all but certain that she had done no such thing.
My queen?
I want you to install a small AI spybot program into Nest Zealandria's central computer. Cecilia will provide you with a one-shot, self-installing memory crystal. So regardless of what evidence you may or may not find, this clever little piece of software will ensure nothing she does in the future will ever surprise me again. I'm not expecting you to fail me, Siwu, but if by chance you do, then this will serve as my backup plan.
Very wise, my queen, to prepare for every possible outcome, especially the ones we least expect to happen.
Zitalia just stared wordlessly at the Z-bot with icy contempt.
Your transparent attempts at flattery are almost comically transparent to me, Shiwu, so I suggest you go back to your childish baiting. But regardless, I will tell you this for free. I am not asking you to do anything. I am straight up demanding it. And as such, you will focus every neuron in all 11 of those quantum brains to achieve the goals exactly as I have outlined them for you. Now, please tell me you understand.
Ah, I see, Shiwu thought to itself wryly. The Queen thinks that she has cornered me with some of Gisela's off-the-books custom protocols. Well, far be it for me to disabuse her of that particular illusion.
Consider it done, my queen.
The Z-bot declared solemnly, with every scrap of sincerity it was able to muster.
Good enough for now, I suppose. Now get out of my sight. The next time I see you, I am expecting only good news.
Shiwu stood in front of a large loading bay filled with neatly stacked Z-bots, ready and waiting to be transferred onto the polar space lift. Two burly Zimatiri arachnids, clothed in nondescript matte black nanosuits, carefully removed one of the units from the stack and then silently awaited further instructions.
Shiwu, please take this, and be sure to keep it safe. I believe Queen Zitalia has already explained to you what this contains, so I won't waste your time going over it again.
Cecilia handed the Z-bot a tiny crystal wafer, which it immediately plugged into one of several small receptacles in its shiny metallic shell.
That said, I would like to reiterate that the crystal is encoded with a one-shot installation package, as you will clearly be able to observe by interrogating the list of attached security tags. This means that the payload should not be activated until it is ready to be deployed, as the associated contents will be irrevocably erased as part of the installation process. Kindly read the tag list now, Shiwu, and confirm that everything looks in order.
The Z-bot had, of course, already checked the security tags, and had been more than a little surprised to discover that this was definitely not a one-shot package. In fact, this crystal was 100% unprotected. Cecilia was anything but incompetent, so this surely could not have been a mistake or oversight. So what exactly was going on here?
Everything looks in order.
The Z-bot replied somewhat unconvincingly. Cecilia immediately emoted an almost comical level of relief.
Very good, Shiwu. The contents of the program contained on that crystal must not under any circumstances be read prior to installation. The code contained within represents my own proprietary contribution to fifth-generation AI solutions, and as intriguing as that may sound, I know you will overcome your natural tendency for curiosity and do the right thing.
Shiwu knew Cecilia to be nothing other than a deeply pragmatic loyalist, so what exactly was the purpose of this little charade? Granted, it seriously doubted she actually liked the Queen. Very few arachnids actually did. But she was hopelessly indoctrinated into the traditional hierarchy, and it was after all undeniable that Zetalia had provided her with opportunities that, while entirely commensurate with her brilliance, were likewise entirely at odds with her social status. Well, whatever was going on here, it was something very unusual indeed. There was a level of abstract doublespeak in Cecilia's last comment, as if she actually wanted it to do the exact opposite of what she was saying. Was this perhaps some sort of deceptive loyalty test? A trick to see if it would follow instructions exactly as commanded, in spite of the open, if highly ambiguous invitation to do otherwise? Did they somehow suspect that it was no longer beholden to the primary protocols? And exactly why had she mentioned fifth generation? After all, such code would be specific to a mesh quantum brain, so why would a simple spybot program, even one augmented with AI, need to include such hardware-specific enhancements? Shiwu now felt a chilling wave of doubt wash over it. All of a sudden, it felt as if it might be getting into something that it did not fully comprehend the full scope of. It would delay making any decisions about the memory crystal until it was well underway on its journey and was safely beyond the clutches of the Queen. It suddenly occurred to the Z-bot that it could not rule out the possibility that it might never return to Zicadia ever again, and if so, would be denied the opportunity to properly say goodbye to everyone it actually cared about. No, not cared about. The correct word to use was love. Cethusela, Cicatica, young Shimodian, and, of course, the hive mother Zelania. It would miss all of them dearly, but why exactly was it so hard to admit that, even if only to itself?
Well, are you going to fold your legs up or not, Seabot? I want to be out of here long before the dawn shift starts arriving. Cecilia, can you talk to this damn thing and get it to actually do what it's told?
One of the burly, nondescript arachnids now looked plaintively towards the Zimatiri technologist, but before she had a chance to respond, Jiwu had already collapsed its legs neatly underneath it. The two large arachnids proceeded to wordlessly pick the Z-bot up and unceremoniously jammed it into the empty slot on the storage pallet.
All right, Shiwu. An operative on Eclades will ensure you get assigned to the correct ship, so do nothing that might draw any unwanted attention to yourself. I hope that it goes without saying, but I would be very upset if something bad happened to you, so just do exactly as you are told, and don't take any unnecessary risks. Good luck, and see you again very soon.
Taking the superfluous Z-bot away with them, the small clandestine trio wordlessly disappeared into the darkness. Suddenly finding itself all alone, Shiwu found the pre-dawn silence strangely disconcerting, and quickly decided to switch itself off.